All right, so here's something new. I'm calling this Idea Scout to go along with Venue Scout. So I'm here with Alex Rivera from NRI. He is my man when it comes to 3D printing. So today we're going to talk about 3D printing and its application to the event world. So Alex, first kind of introduce yourself and just tell me the story how you got involved with 3D printing and what you love about it.
Absolutely. Hey, how you doing, guys? My name is Alex Rivera. I am NRI's 3D artist / toy designer. I've been working with NRI for about a year and some change now. We are a 3D printing company, and I kind of fell into this kind of on my own a little bit a couple of years ago. Traditionally, I'm a 3D animator. Got a BFA in animation about 10 years ago, and I've been working in the industry, freelancing all over the place. And a few years ago, I decided I kind of started to raise a family and couldn't animate as much as I wanted to. So I had a library of characters that I've created over the years. I remember going to a Maya Meters group, which is basically the program that I use to create animations and characters. And there was an animator who had the same story, had a family and just couldn't find the time to animate. And he decided to fall into 3D printing. He fell in love with it, started doing some characters, printing them out, testing them, prototyping them. And he basically showed me the entire behind-the-scenes process of what it takes to, create something, print it, prototype it, reprint it, and then take it out to market. Big up to Steve Tukowski. That guy's the man. Anyway, but at that point, I knew what I wanted to do. I was like, you know what? I've amassed 10 plus years of just knowledge, and I'm kind of letting it go to waste. So I went out, bought myself my own little solid doodle little desktop 3D printer. Started printing everything I could, and just learned it. I dived deep into it, and I was seeing my characters that I've sketched, then modeled, then physically holding them was life changing. Absolutely life changing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool because even I met Alex at a BizBash event and I got my picture taken, and so you get to see what it's like. It's pretty cool, and he just handed that to me, and you get to see you on a 3D print. So that's pretty cool.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That's an evolution of what I've been doing. So here's a chance to take this concept of toys and what I love to do and what I just enjoy doing and bringing it to the everyday person. This, to me, is a cool little desk toy. You can't go wrong with that. That's a little mini-me that you can kind of show around and show.
Well, I think the coolest thing about it is it really shows a whole change of technology. And I was telling you where I love this and I really think it fits in is any event that has a technology theme, or if you kind of want a World's Fair theme where technology is part of the entertainment and you see something cool. Because even when you're talking about with this being a great desk toy, we're at this point in life where technology is changing so fast. And whenever you go to a conference, you ever go to anything, you're expecting to come home with something. And you think how many of those things are now irrelevant. And one of them is a flash drive.
Yeah.
You have 47 of these things,
absolutely.
and now I have Dropbox.
Yeah.
And why am I remembering what's on these branded things? But a photo will never go out of style. And people love photo booths. And so here is a whole new evolution of photo booths. So describe what somebody would get in the process of ordering, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, so the cool part is that this is one of hundreds of concepts that can be rolled out. I think this was the first, like you said, it's an evolution. You wanted to take the traditional photo booth and kind of mirror that process. You sit in front of a camera, you get a picture taken, next thing you know, you get something. Yeah. The something in this case was a 3D print. We're calling these 3D selfies. So you get
even before, right away, you get an email that's like the 3D of your head that's just on.
So there was the challenge. The challenge was, and you mentioned it 2 seconds ago, was that people are used to bringing home something immediately. In the 3D printing world, printing takes a little bit of time. It takes time to process it. It takes time to actually physically print it out, and there's a lead time to everything. So how can we kind of keep the excitement going till you physically receive your print? And that's we do real-time previews in the cloud where you see a 3D rotation of your face, which I'm sure you saw it immediately after the photo.
And it's perfect. It's the same thing that if you went and you had a traditional photo booth and there was a social media kiosk, instead of uploading your picture to Facebook, you get an email picture of your 3D scan. And it takes a little time because everything has to be printed, but anything that's custom made for an event is going to take time afterwards. So
what's cool, I don't know if you noticed, talk about Facebook, is that those previews that you saw are now ready to be thrown into an integration in Facebook called Sketchfab, which basically takes 3D renders and you can see them in your browser real time. So again,
Could you then customize it and send it to you to like print?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
cool.
And that's the cool thing. Once you go digital, once you give me a digital file, forget about it. I'm going to print that guy.
Yeah, and it's just like with a digital file, it's easy to. You can make changes and you can come up with creative. And here's an idea you just showed me about the 3D booth. So let's talk about this and what is so cool about this.
Well, 3D Systems is releasing a new product where it's basically the ability for you to stand in front of this kiosk, this little booth. It takes a picture of your face, and then your face gets put onto a body of your choice. Everything from cowboys to Indians to cops and robbers. The great thing is that now they have licensed characters, and they just rolled out Ghostbusters. So now you can get a officially licensed product of you as a Ghostbuster holding, a little plasma gun.
So then that's where like this actually applies to anything that you could think about. Because a traditional photo booth is like the green screen photo booth,
Correct.
where instead of standing with a background, now you could have, as you said, like a toy. You could have an actual figurine of you as like a ninja or a cowboy or a knight.
Where else can you get that?
No, that's so cool. And then you have this, but I'm imagining myself with. So I think I would have done like Legend of Avatar. I would have had like shaved head. I would have had a blue arrow.
And again, that's all super possible.
Yeah,
and
anything is possible.
It's the point of all we need at the end of the day is to capture the data. Once we have the data, and we can just think of it as your Photoshop, right? You can manipulate any photo to do whatever you want. In 3D digital space, it's the same exact thing. We get to manipulate it however we want. And as you can see, this is manipulated. There's a little base that was put. Because last time I checked.
Yeah. I had a neck and a body.
So it's one of those things where it's very and super highly customizable. You can brand it. I mean, this stand could be anything. This
and
stand
you
could be
can
absolutely
print in multiple material, right?
So the technology that you're seeing here is based off the 3D Systems X60 line, and they're basically a powder print. Powder right now is one of the few technologies that we offer that's full color.
So powder's it's like paper, it's like layered paper.
No, it's literally a gypsum powder. We'll take a peek later in a few. It's literally a gypsum powder, almost like a plaster. Plaster when it's in its original state. It lays down a layer of powder, and just like your inkjet at home, it lays down ink as it goes through. Right. So now you have a little layer of ink that it's kind of there's a binding agent that goes with it. So that kind of it makes sure it solidifies and it's able to stick to the next layer. So another layer of powder is put over it. The ink goes over again. That drops. Another powder, another layer of powder. Ink goes over it and it drops. And every single time you do it, and if you look at it closely, you can see those little build lines.
Yeah.
Those lines that kind of striations that go across.
Oh, so this is actually printed like this.
That guy was printed like that. Yeah, and
Cool.
You can totally see it really up close. If you
Yeah,
look closer.
now it makes
See that?
sense. That makes more sense that it'd be printed like that than going up.
And again, it's there's a lot of reasons we print in different orientations.
Yeah, but it needs to be more stable. It's got a bigger
Correct.
base, so that makes sense. And the cool thing is, although you wouldn't get the 3D print that day, we could still set up so you have the printers on site printing something so people could see the technology in action.
To a certain degree. I always liken it to these are professional grade machines. These are high end.
Well, not even just like a small one.
Yes.
Right?
So if you want,
it's not the same
Correct.
exact machine because some of these are they're huge, right? The size of the bus.
They take up the
So obviously,
not the size of the bus, but they're big.
We're not bringing in and rolling in this huge thing, but we can still have a demonstration of the technology live at your site.
Correct, and that part is very interesting because there's actually a whole slew of consumer grade 3D printers, which is what you've heard on the market. Your MakerBot, Solid Doodles, your Cube Pros. All those machines are, portable and they're small.
Like this big, right?
Yeah. And again, you can see how it works. You can see it printing. It's a different technology. It won't,
it's not the same one, but I said it gives you a general idea, and that's where it plays back to my theme of science and technology, where if you want technology to be the star of your event, it's cool that someone gets to take away, but they also get to see this technology, which it sounds like it's actually been around longer than I even thought. But I think for most people, it's like this technology is finally hitting the forefront of pop culture. So why not take advantage of that and play off this technology that seems so new and revolutionary, but really has had time on the back end to percolate and improve?
Correct. 3D printing has been around for 10 plus years.
Yeah, I was surprised you told me that. I think I found out about it 3 years ago.
It's one of those. It's a progression of how costly the materials were and being accessible to the public. Now that you have companies like the MakerBot, which did a huge, just outright, branding and blitz campaign to get people. Hey, 3D printing. Oh, okay.
Now it's accessible. I mean, it's like any technology. The TV, when the computer first took up the size of a room, it takes time for the technology to be accessible and affordable to the general public. So I also want to talk about that, the 3D Doodler. I saw a video of this. I'll put this in the blog post as well of somebody drawing, but this is pretty cool. Yeah,
these guys are meant to be one of those items where it puts the technology in your hand, right? It's really one of those products where
yeah, let's see it. Can we take it out?
Let's take it out.
So this thing, it's like a heater, right? And it heats this like wax.
This is the same exact technology that you're seeing in the 3D printers that are desktop. There's a heating component, and then there's your material.
Yeah.
So there's a PLA plastic that gets loaded into the back end, almost like a hot glue gun, right? So it extrudes through the machine, it heats up, and it liquefies it to a certain point. Once you get to the tip is going to be super hot, and when you press the button, the material comes out, and as it's coming out, it'll re-solidify, right? So it literally, you can print.
So you're drawing upwards. I said, I'll actually have a video so you can see the demonstration, and so that's a cool thing that you could have at your event, where it's very customizable, and obviously you can't do a great deal of volume, but you can still have people taking home something, and you could have an artist, and so, I mean, there's all kinds. This is taking advantage of that type of the event space where people like to see art come to life. Correct. You could actually have somebody draw something totally customizable for you in 3D and then hand it to people. So that's really neat.
And again, the limitations are what it is. It's a very fun product to kind of introduce the concept of how what we call FDM, fused deposit modeling 3D printing, which is basically where plastic is melted and solidified again, one layer at a time, and it builds up. So 3D printing is funny because 3D printing, the word 3D printing is kind of a misnomer. What we're really doing is called additive manufacturing, right? So traditionally, when you want to mill
sounds like something from Marvel.
Excelsior. No, that's something else. So when you traditionally want to build something, you get a big block of steel and you mill it out and you get your final piece. So you're removing material to get your final piece.
Yeah, you're sculpting, cutting down.
Correct. So in 3D printing or additive
manufacturing, building up.
You're building up by adding material to it. So it's one of those cool words that we throw around. 3D printing is just one of those like keywords.
It's like the layman term for it. Yeah.
But again, this kind of just. For events, it's one of those things that put it in your hand. Like, put it in your hand, you get to play with it, you get to kind of experience it. But my whole goal here is for folks to experience 3D. It's one of those things where it's easy to say, hey, I can shoot you a text about it. But coming in here, holding your own face in your hand, holding the 3D doodler in your hand, and seeing a little
thing actually print.
You see the technology. You can start. Oh, I see. Okay, so that's what it means by additive, and that's what it means by layers. And okay, I see striations. I see what.
It is cool. It's just so like science fiction. The idea that what seems like nothing is just like all of a sudden just building. Like something is just being created in front of you.
And that's the great part about what we do is that we are now the professionals that are bringing this technology so that you can interact with it. And that's kind of what we called it. We kind of termed it 3D interactives for events. It's an experience. It's one of those things that unless you saw, and as you experienced at BizBash, it was one of those things where it's impressive. You can totally see what can happen afterwards, and it's really 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 awesome.